Okay, so it's 3 days to payday. Funds are low and supplies are rather limited. Let's talk about this. What can we do to get through it? Back in a minute. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, this is Jan from New York City. Channel name is Jan from New York City Saves Money, and I truly love helping people to save as much money as they can. Hard earned money, that is. Never forget the words hard earned money. And I must really, really love my audience because this is take five. The first three were perfect in every way. Technical problems had nothing to do with me. The fourth one was a mistake on my end and I didn't like it. If I don't like it, I'm not going to put it on. That's me. Anyway, let's get right to it. How many folks out there are a little more challenged that couple of days before payday? Take heart. There are a lot of people who are in good company with you. 61% of Americans at this time of this recording live paycheck to paycheck. This is one of the reasons I constantly emphasizing the idea of increasing your pantry stockpile all the time. And not just with grocery, meaning food, but other supplies as well that have nothing to do with food. But for now, we're going to concentrate on meals. Let's say you have 3 days to go before payday, and however, you are limited in what you have. But before you do that, number one, don't panic. Take a deep breath. Like I said, take heart. A lot of people are in good company with you. The next thing I strongly suggest is go around your home or apartment and take a really good inventory of the stuff that you might have or didn't know that you have or think you can't do much with in your pantry, in your stockpile. Okay. The other thing is look around in case you have some money left in change jars or envelopes or whatever that you might have stashed away in the beginning of the month or a couple of months back you forgot about. And that could really make a big difference if you take that with you, for example, to a little bit of a grocery store haul. And I mean little bit because your funds are low and so on and so on. So I have some ideas that will be very helpful that if you did have this in your pantry and your stockpile, check to see, and I hope you have it. Some of these canned goods, any canned goods actually, canned veggies. I'm always suggesting to keep a can of mixed vegetables around or in your freezer because that's part of it too. Mixed vegetables go with so many things. That's if your family eats it, of course. Bouillon cubes or bouillon powder. If you happen to have some canned soups, although you don't have to have canned soups, you can always make your own. Little cans of tomato sauces. Do you have a jar of peanut butter? You could do lots of sandwiches with that. Do you have peanut butter? Do you have jelly? What kind of bread swap outs do you have? Do you have crackers or do you have rice or do you have noodles or do you have pasta, for example? Perhaps you don't realize that you actually have a couple of cans or two of tuna fish or of chicken, canned chicken, great proteins. Check if you enjoy beans. If you have any canned beans, garbanzo beans, black beans, pinto beans, any beans that you like. Or if you happen to have lentils, or if you happen to have dried beans, you could always use those. These are important, very important things, in my honest opinion, that one should keep in their grocery stockpile all the time, especially for times when funds are low and or slash you cannot get to your grocery store. Just saying, just saying. All right. Now, in your refrigerator, how many eggs do you have? You might have to count them. You might have to count them, conserve them, and stretch them to make them work as best as possible for you in the next 3 days. If you have to go to the grocery store and purchase them and you don't have enough money, see if you could buy a half a dozen eggs. Some places sell half a dozen eggs. Another strong suggestion, look to see if you have potatoes, bananas, apples. Bananas are so filling. Some of these really large bananas, literally, you could cut in half and split with someone that you're with. Excuse me. Apples are, by their own nature and design, very filling. So I strongly suggest those. You can also have if you want something a little different, you could make, instead of eating the banana or eating the apple, turn that into A muffin or a bread, apple bread, banana bread, that's a great stretcher, or make muffins out of them. Again, comes in totally handy. With the potatoes, you could turn around, you can make some baked potatoes, load them up with whatever you have, vegetables like broccoli. If you have some cheddar cheese or whatever you like, whatever you have that makes you happy, and you can work with it and load it up into your baked potato. That in and of itself could be its own meal. Okay. So if you have some eggs, you can make a few hard boiled eggs. You can make egg salad sandwiches, or you could decide to make some deviled eggs. Okay. If you're low on bread or don't have any bread, if you have like simple 2 ingredient types of breads that you can make with your all purpose flour, you could look for that online and you could get some very, very easy recipes. Some people make their own fry bread. Some people make their own homemade biscuits. Some people have biscuits and their own homemade gravy. You don't have to buy gravy. You could easily make gravy. Making your own gravy can always save you a ton of money. And if you have some, don't forget to look in your freezer, because in the beginning of the month, what might have happened, what I strongly suggest all the time, if you have extra pieces of roast beef, roast chicken, whatever you have, clean it off carefully off the roast, cut it up nicely, store it nicely, pack it in the freezer, and you have yourself the fixings either for a sandwich or for a soup. And that's another thing. For the 3 days, you can make yourself count how many heads that you're working with. If you have a family of 3 or 4, make a big pot of soup that might last a day or two. Might even be able to stretch it out to 3. So just, do the math. You figure a cup of soup per serving, and then you add what you have. Those little cans of tomato sauce are a great flavoring base for soup. Those bouillon cubes, you don't have to have beef, you don't have to have chicken. If you prefer vegetable bouillon, that's totally fine. You could do that. You could have a vegetable soup, you could add pasta, you could add rice, or you could add beans if this is your preference. A big pot of soup lasting the 3 days is a totally great idea. You could have the soup with some toast on the side, or whatever bread that you have, or omit the bread, because if you have rice or noodles, you may not want the bread, but you still could have the bread, because if you have that, that'll definitely fill you up. As far as dessert goes, you could always make your own pudding from scratch. It's a very simple thing to do. I gave the recipe to make vanilla pudding from scratch. If you happen to have cornstarch and vanilla extract, could even be the imitation one, and basically some sugar and some milk, you got yourself some vanilla pudding. Very, very easy to do. There are ways and there are ways to get around it. You can make a simple cake. If you have some box cake mix, you don't have to have frosting on the cake. Maybe just make yourself a plain yellow cake. Maybe use some other flavoring on top. Maybe put some cinnamon sugar on top of that as a topping. You could do that easily. Just give it a little more pizzazz if you like. There are so many things. As far as beverages go, seltzer is quite cheap. You can still get your bubbles, or you can make your own homemade iced tea, a nice cold pitcher of iced tea, and put that in the refrigerator. You're not going to feel like it's as bad as it could feel. It's up to you to make it so that the meals are enjoyable, pleasant, and you'll know that you're okay until you get your next paycheck and do like your big grocery shopping. This is why I always say in the beginning of the month, or whenever it is that you get your main source of income, to plan ahead, and as you go along throughout the month, to continuously increase and add to your stockpile, so that you close up that gap at the end of the month, which could happen to anyone. It could happen to anyone. There you go. It is my utmost hope that this fifth time take recording will hopefully help someone out there. If I helped a handful of people, then I did my job and it was worth it. I am convinced sometimes that sometimes forces against me doesn't like me to put out good messages. And I said, that's okay. I stand on faith, and I gave out my message, and it is my utmost hope that it gets delivered to the right ears today. Have an amazing, fantastic day, everybody. Take good care of yourself and your wonderful family.